It's time for Wheels Wednesday. This is the conversation that we have every week about everything automotive related. This is a significant expense that a lot of people have. You spend quite a lot of money on the vehicle that you drive, and it is something that we try to do. We try to help you make a decision. Today we're going to talk about hybrid cars. And joining me to talk to you about the latest developments in that space is Sergius Barretto, who is Managing Editor at Autocar India. Thank you, Sergius, for taking the time, and good evening to you. Could you say that the hybrid car is finally making a comeback?
In a way, Alex, yes, hybrids, in terms of, let's say, strong hybrids, have been around internationally, but they've not really caught on in India. However, now with Honda having launched the City Strong Hybrid, Maruti and Toyota both very shortly will also launch a sort of mid-size SUV with strong hybrid technology. Yeah, you could say, it's gaining ground in India now.
But you mentioned strong hybrid. For those that are unfamiliar with the technology that drives these vehicles, what is a strong hybrid? How is it different from a mild hybrid?
Right. So yeah, as you correctly said, there are like broadly two types, strong and mild hybrid. The mild hybrid is what we have on Maruti's range of cars. That's probably the most popular that you see. It's an electrical system that can power the car along with the engine. So it only sort of assists the engine in its motive sort of this thing, and it contributes to about maybe 2% an improvement in fuel efficiency. A strong hybrid, however, it can power the car under electric power only. So it becomes a sort of electric vehicle. A pure EV mode is what strong hybrids have. So they have a larger battery, a stronger motor. And, here, obviously, the fuel savings are significantly more. You can get 20 to 30% increase in efficiency, depending, of course, on the model. So that's broadly the difference between a mild and a strong. A mild is basically only assisting the engine, whereas a strong hybrid can run the car under electric power only.
But when you're investing in these, okay, so let's talk about these latest variants that have come out. And we will restrict our conversation, Sergius, then to only strong hybrid, because that's essentially what you said will bring the most fuel efficiency and the best outcome for the individual using the car, right? So apart from the ones that you've already mentioned, you've talked about the strong hybrid City, and you've also talked about the upcoming Hyryder by Toyota. The Brezza, if I'm also not mistaken, the new Brezza will have that same offering. What else is available in the market before we talk about these models in more detail?
So basically, in strong hybrids, what's available, as you correctly said, there is the Honda City strong hybrid. You also have the Toyota Camry. Now, that's, of course, at the sort of slightly higher end, but that was one of the pioneering strong hybrid cars that we had in India. And yes, the Toyota Hyryder, Maruti will also have their version of the Hyryder, which is being unveiled, I think, on the 20th of this month. So these are the, four, I would say, strong hybrid options that you have. There are, of course, higher up still, like the Porsche Cayenne, even, for example, is also a strong hybrid. But for the mass segment, yeah, this is what is what you'd have, to choose from.
Pointed out that the Camry is obviously at the higher end of the spectrum. But if you talk about the rest, what is the kind of money that somebody would have to put down if they were to acquire this once, of course, these vehicles become available?
So yeah, if you look at let's take the case of the Honda City, because that has a model with the diesel, petrol, and a hybrid, a strong hybrid. Now the petrol top end automatic comes in at somewhere around 15 odd lakh. The diesel also being sort of similarly priced, though the diesel is a manual, which is why the price is similar. Whereas the hybrid goes up to 19.5 lakh, so that's about a 4 lakh rupee premium over the regular sort of petrol and diesel models. So that's the kind of money that you're looking at. Now, of course, they have added other features along with the strong hybrid, but really the bulk of the cost does come in from the hybrid system, which uses a larger battery and a big motor as well.
It doesn't help, Sergius, that the tax treatment of hybrids, which, if I'm not mistaken, in the past was lucrative for buyers of hybrids, was changed, and it no longer has an advantage over its internal combustion peers, correct?
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely right, Alex. In fact, that's one of the sad things. What happened was earlier it was lucrative, it was given sort of concessions, but unfortunately, they didn't, the lawmakers didn't distinguish between mild and strong hybrids. And as a result, all of the mild hybrids began claiming that sort of benefit. So they took it all away. Ideally, what should be done is you've got to have a separate tax slab for EVs, of course, electric vehicles, but also a separate, maybe smaller concession for strong hybrids, because they do offer significant differences. So that would really make the case more appealing. I mean, if you look at, the Honda City itself, that 4 lakh rupee premium, we did our own road test at, the Autocar instrumented road test, and you'd need something like 2 lakh kilometers to recover that amount, So that's a lot that you have to drive.
I want to talk about that in more detail then, because it comes down to exactly that. You're talking about a 20-25% difference in the cost of a hybrid as opposed to its, its internal combustion peer in the same car. What would you need to have in terms of performance, in terms of the real numbers for you to be convinced to say that this is really the one to go for?
No, so in the case of the city, the price difference is about, like I said, 4 lakh. So you will need that much of running, 2 lakh kilometers to just recover the cost. Because we look at the fuel efficiency that we did, and I'm talking real world fuel efficiency, not the claim. In our testing, we got 12 kilometers per liter for the petrol automatic, whereas the hybrid got about 19 or 19.8. So that's near about 20. Now there is an appreciable difference, right? 12 and 20. But you're going to have to run that much to recover the amount that you're paying initially upfront. And this is without even factoring in, interest rates and things like that. We just took purely the difference in price. So coming to the Toyota and the Maruti, what they probably will be doing is they'll juggle around with features and try and keep the price of the strong hybrid sort of competitive against the other mid-size SUVs, which come with the diesel engine. Now, interestingly, Suzuki don't have a diesel, as you know, they've moved away from diesels. So they're going to try and use the strong hybrid as sort of their answer to diesel engines. And if they price it correctly, they could actually make a good case, but it will boil down to the pricing, and that's going to be difficult because they don't have the tax benefit.
So fair point. You would have to drive a significantly longer distance for it to make sense if you're doing a like-to-like comparison between a city and a city. But like you're saying, if they price it competitively in the segment, which is that mid-sized SUV space, I'm talking about the Toyota Hyryder now, there is a case to be made. But the question is, what about maintenance cost? Is that could that potentially be higher for a hybrid?
So that's a very good point, Alex. Yes, it could potentially be higher. You see, in an electric vehicle, you take out the internal combustion engine completely. So you don't have the maintenance of that. You don't have the oil, you don't have the oil filters and all of that. Here you have both systems, so you have like a petrol engine and you have the whole electric system as well. So you're not taking away the ICE motor. So potentially you could have a higher maintenance cost. If, for example, you have to maintain the engine and you also might have to maintain the battery system and the electrical charging system. So yes, potentially it could be a higher amount. But given the fact that electric motors, and batteries are fairly reliable, it shouldn't be that much of a worry. It's really that you're paying upfront sort of for two powertrains, if you could think of it that way.
A follow-up then, if you're talking about a traditional ICE engine or a car powered by this, the battery obviously would be smaller than a hybrid, but you would look at 3.5 years when you would need to replace this battery. In a hybrid, where you're talking about the use of that battery being more significant, what is the kind of life that you would need to have on that hybrid battery, and what is the kind of cost that you would incur if you were to change that?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Alex. Like you said, in an ICE vehicle, your battery, which is used to basically start the car,
Yeah.
power the headlights and things like that, you change it between 2 and 3 years, and that's because really it's sort of a lead acid battery, not really the newer technology ones. Now, electric vehicles, they use lithium batteries or nickel based batteries. And those last really long. In fact, as you know, on most EVs, they promise you like an 8-year service life. And that's The same with strong hybrids. They use the same battery technology as electric vehicles, and so they also give you that sort of same service life. You will have like a 6 to an 8 year service life for the car. So that pretty much covers what you typically use. If you do have to change it, yes, it can be quite expensive. And for now, unfortunately, Honda are being very tight-lipped as to what the cost of that battery really is. But yes, it's not going to be as cheap as your lead acid battery in the your normal ICE cars. But 8 years, yeah, that's more or less what you can expect from the battery life.
So far, we've been talking about hybrid versus ICE. But, Sergis, I think I would also like to do a comparison between hybrid versus full electric, because clearly there is a significant advantage if you have a charging infrastructure available to you at home. We've spoken with your colleagues about that range anxiety being not really something to worry about if you're talking about some of the new vehicles. They're quite capable of taking care of your immediate requirements. Would you go so far as to draw a comparison between, say, a Hyryder and a Nexon and say which is better?
Yeah, so it depends purely on your use case. If, like you said, if you have the charging infrastructure and you don't have, long range driving, the EVs, the Nexon EV, as you said, range will suit you. By all means, go ahead, with a EV. It is the future. You'll have maximum savings with an electric vehicle being pure EV only. You also won't have that maintenance cost of maintaining the engine, the engine oil and the oil filter, etc. So in that case, definitely go with the EV. But if you do have a lot of long distance driving, for example, I mean, I drive very often to my hometown in Goa, about 600 kilometers away from here. Now, a Nexon EV isn't going to make that trip without multiple stops along the way. Whereas with a Hyryder, I will be able to do that. So that is where a hybrid sort of makes good sense, because you're getting much better efficiency. So it's if you look at it, it's like a halfway point between electric vehicles and a purely internal combustion motor. So I think it's purely use based. If you're looking at a shorter range and you've got your charging infrastructure, an EV is definitely sort of the better one to do. But if your usage is varied, really mixed, lot of long distances, then a hybrid might be a better choice.
Fantastic. I think we've had a fruitful conversation. Thank you so much, Sergis, for taking the time.
You're welcome. Thanks, Alex.